Hello viewers, paintheads, cultural commandos. It's time for us to do what we do, which is going out and beating the bushes. We're going to run into the SFA Projects Gallery. Take a look at a Benjamin Pritchard show titled Wayfarer. I'm going to try to hit at least a couple of shows today. Here on the Lower East Side, we'll give you a little potpourri of some of the current painting exhibitions that are going on. Now, this show by Ben Pritchard is something I thought was interesting. I've probably been aware of Ben's work for about 5 or 6 years now. This piece is titled Zebra 2018, oil on linen, 20 by 15 inches. And I first saw Ben's work in maybe a couple of group shows out in Bushwick. I think Ben is now he's a Brooklyn artist, but as I understand it, he's actually from Detroit. Studied in London, I believe, for a while. And then, like a lot of young artists, ended up in Brooklyn. I actually kind of think this suite is rather interesting because he's got this very closely keyed violets and blues here. This is titled Deep Palm 2015. Nighttime structure. One of the things I enjoy about Ben's work is that he's got a real kind of an obsessive overworking of the surfaces. And we'll just look at the side of this piece. A lot of these pieces he works on for months. What does that say? It says pan something. Yeah, so by the time these paintings get to this point, he might have been painting on them for months, maybe years, and there can actually be 10 other paintings underneath there. This is titled Nighttime. This is actually interesting. We'll see if we can capture some of the strange kind of, I don't even know what called reflective qualities of some of these pigments. And as you go back and forth, you get this kind of strange moire patterns. Yeah. It's titled Fire, 20 by 20. Well, there's a long and rich heritage of this kind of obsessive painterly incident. You know, people that keep working on things, and in a certain way it's the total opposite of someone that wants to hit it on the first go around. This is just titled N. Well, I think some of the first paintings that caught my eye that Ben was doing were some other black and white pieces. This is oil on canvas, 32 by 26. And I was talking about the kind of the legacy, at least the New York legacy of this type of painting, and I would say that in certain ways, he's almost a patron saint of a lot of painters in the Williamsburg scene, is Albert Pinkham Ryder. People like, I think Bill Jensen has written at least a couple of essays talking about Ryder and his appreciation of his work. And Chris Martin's also a Albert Pinkham Ryder fan. It's titled Zero. And, well, Ryder was known for spending years on a painting and also mixing a lot of wacky stuff into his paint. It's titled The Korean, 13 by 9. This is Keith Schweitzer, the proprietor here. Do you want to add anything to the comments about Ben's work?
Well, what you're looking at right now is Shift.
Titled Shift 2018.
It's one of his, it's one of Ben's division paintings, and you'll see a few of them in the show. You can kind of imagine why it's called a division painting.
Sure. But you were saying that he does take months, maybe years on some of these, and they've got a lot of other paintings below the surface?
Yeah, it's the top surface that I think eventually, I mean, it could take one day to do the top surface.
Right.
But to arrive at that point when he's satisfied with the painting takes sometimes years.
Okay.
And actually, a funny thing about Ben is the only way, perhaps, to get him to stop working on some of these is to take them out of the studio and hang them.
Right, I've heard that. Stand away from the painting, put the brushes down. We're going to take this and put it in a show. Okay, this is maybe the largest piece in this show. I was wondering, is this, most of these pieces are fairly intimate, so we're talking about something maybe 2 feet by something. Is that mostly his standard size, or did you select a bunch of paintings that were smaller? And
no, that's a pretty standard size for Ben.
Okay.
Although he's done some much larger works. Some are 4-panel works that
Right.
are maybe 12 feet, but they're a little hard to fit in this case.
So this is probably the largest piece in this show. This is Nevada, 2018 oil on canvas. 60 by 48, so that's 5 by 4 feet. You know, you were saying that you also had people who were wondering whether he had used encaustic, but I think the reason that that is kind of an interesting question, or the people that are paying attention would be wondering about things like that, is, and we'll try to get some grading light on this, Ben is very good with his various kinds of surfaces, so we've got the shiny, oily parts. We've got the parts that are more dry pigment surface, and then we've also got the thin solvent drips, and it all comes together in a nice melange of surface.
I think they're deceivingly simple.
Yes.
At first pass, because they're actually quite challenging. And I believe it's Ben's intention to subvert expectations through his work. You know, if he finds himself falling into some sort of reference and becomes aware of it, he paints his way back out of that reference.
Okay, this is titled Mind. Well, going back to what you're talking about, first of all, a lot of this is very formalistic. So we were talking about the division paintings. This one basically is 6 squares, but as opposed to someone who would be, say, a hard-edged abstractionist, he really is using the brush stroke as an eminent way of creating his forms. And that's one of the other things I enjoy about the work is that, and you're talking about, you might work on this for months or even years, and then the final layer might happen in 20 minutes or 10 minutes, but it's that journey that gets you to that point that's the interesting part. This is titled Division 1.
And this is really interesting also as a concept for Ben's process, is that Division 1, this is perhaps the first division painting, and then Division 1 becomes a generator for all the other divisions. You know, it kind of gets him into this riff where he can keep going back to this painting that it took him a long time to arrive at. Maybe perhaps the other ones come more quickly or present their own challenges.
This is titled Red Planet Mars 2018. Well, I think on this one you can see a lot of scraping, and well, I've always been a fan of material painting, and people like Dubuffet or even Tapier's, and I think Ben is also kind of in that category. And you know, this kind of shows you that it's not just about adding stuff on, because he's also getting a wonderful surface by scraping stuff off. And this is 20 by 16. Nighttime Wanderings 2018, oil on canvas, 25 by 16.
Again, this one fits really nicely into the title of the show, which is Wayfarer.
Yes,
The Wanderer.
the Wanderer, or as I was pointing out, the most popular style of Ray-Ban sunglasses that's ever been designed. Now this is kind of odd. I've noticed this little red dot up here on a couple of pieces. Is that just an accident, or is that one of his little symbols that he uses for some reason? It's kind of...
It's not, sometimes it's not red, sometimes there's a white dot, and I don't have the answer to why. I don't know if he does. You know?
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Dos Equis, 2018, oil on canvas. Platonic Horizon, 2015, 20 by 18 inches. Again, we've got a very simple composition, basically a horizontally divided panel, but then we've got a lot of great, interesting stuff that goes on underneath that, and I think that those two forms, kind of like an isometric cubes, those actually have been scraped through the black. The Minimalist. Again, here's the great kind of shifting between the glossy, the matte, almost a kind of a leathery-like surface in some areas, and very nice, urgent brushwork. And we're gonna wrap up looking at this piece here. Oh, we got some more around the corner. Okay. Angel, 2018, 9.5 by 9.5. I thought this was a real gem. Now, it's kind of interesting the way that Ben has laid this out because we've got diagonal stripes, sort of starting out a certain thickness, getting thicker and thicker, maybe twice as thick in the middle, but also his brush strokes, how they kind of break up here in the middle. You have another implied diagonal coming through there, and even though he's got a very restricted palette, just kind of off-white and a dark gray, black, it's very nice painting. There's a couple of juicier coloristic pieces. This is the namesake of the show. This is titled Wayfarer. It's oil on denim. (2018). It's unstretched. It's titled Clarity, 2017. And this is a good piece to wrap up on. This might be the punchiest color-wise, but again, we've got a very kind of a fundamental formalist composition, and of course there's a lot of stuff that's been built up underneath here. And then that final layer is just very precisely and urgently laid in there. Probably it's like rehearsing all these paintings underneath. These are kind of like rehearsals for the final job. Okay, well that was a stroll through Benjamin Pritchard Wayfarers. Here at Schweitzer Fine Art. What's the address?
131 Christie Street.
131 Christie Street. Thanks, Keith. Well, we have slid back over to the Bowery, and we're going to try to hop in here now to Andrew Edlin. And we're going to look at an exhibition of paintings by Tom Bronk. Well, I walked in and saw this show last week, and boy, my eyes were jangling for about 15 minutes after I got back out onto the Bowery, but I thought this was group of some pretty interesting paintings by an interesting artist. We'll take a quick run through. This is titled 17C3 2017 acrylic on panel, 24 by 48 inches. Well, oh, there's Andrew Edlin. I came in and saw the show last week, and well, I was very impressed for a couple of reasons. One reason is that I think this is Tom's first show ever, and Tom is about 73, 74. And one of the interesting things is that Tom has done some work for Leo Castelli, I guess back, as they say, I hate to use this term, back in the day, when Leo Castelli was at 420 West Broadway for about 20 years, Tom would go in and paint the walls of the gallery. But Tom didn't really break into the, I guess what you would call the commercial art world. And Tom didn't go to Yale or Columbia or NYU to study painting. Tom is totally self-taught, and that's another reason why I think these paintings are extraordinary. This is just Untitled 2018. Well, because I'm a painter myself, I like to give these pieces, I guess what you would call, from the new criticism, a close reading. And well, one of the things is that I think that maybe because Tom has been painting for so long and has worked as a professional painter and has probably seen examples of much of the best abstract painting that's been exhibited here, he's kind of cherry-picked all of his favorite technical means for creating his works. Now, these are all acrylic, but, well, this is a good example. This one is 17C4, 24 by 48. So I'm not sure exactly how he gets all of these various surface things. See, there's kind of almost a silvery metallic finish there in that gray. The green is kind of mottled, so I don't know whether that's some kind of spray paint that he's using. So you've got very subtle things like this, which I think are some kind of gel maybe that he's coating in. And then, so this kind of magenta pink rectangle here has this texture, and I think that some of this he is rolling, using a little nubby roller to get that texture. And also, I just think as a formalist that he's very good, but like I said, the thing that really made me sit up and take notice was this incredible color. Now, as I said, I'm sitting here and my eyes are kind of jingling. And it'll be interesting to see how much of this I'll be able to capture on the video. But again, we've got this wonderful kind of a deep magenta rectangle. And, you know, the nice striped background. Very simple composition, but coloristically there are some fantastic things happening. It's got a couple of these large square pieces. This is 96E from 1996, 48 by 48. So one of the interesting things is that this particular piece, he's using these finer stripes. But one of the things that's fantastic is he is really beyond just the things that he's doing with the color, the straight contrasts, the red against greens, blue against yellows, orange against greens, black against white, is then he's also got an entire vocabulary of translucent, almost like a candy apple colors, metallic, pearlescent. It's like an index of various other qualities of the paint and the colors. It's an interesting suite of, I would actually call these kind of like diptychs, except they're divided horizontally instead of vertically. 14C2. Here's the other funny anecdote about Tom. Tom actually lives across the street on Rivington Street, and I think he's probably lived there for 35 years, something like that. And, well, of course, there's a lot of pressure on anybody that's living in Manhattan, you know, just the gentrification and the real estate developers. This is 14K2, 2014, 48 by 24. And, well, as I said, Tom has never had a show before, but I guess at some point he decided it was time to get out and exhibit these things. When you get into your 70s, I guess you don't have to be bashful about your youth anymore. And so he initially approached a gallery, and of course I think this gallery was on 57th Street. Okay, yeah, this chartreuse is such a fabulous field, especially when it's contrasted with this fluorescent orange and yeah, that kind of silver gray. Anyway, so the people on 57th Street contacted somebody else that was in Chelsea, I believe. This is titled 16K2, 2016. So they went over and looked at the work and liked it, but didn't think it was in the kind of the right direction they were going in. And so eventually somebody showed some of the work to Andrew, and he said, yeah, I like this. And turns out the guy has been living across the street here for decades. I think one of the other things that I appreciate, and I think that kind of fits in with the program here at Andrew Edlin, is that although these are wonderfully precise and very well executed technically, there's also, and these are all on panel, there's a certain kind of funkiness. You know, somebody like Peter Haley has got, well, several assistants helping him, and of course, when you have assistants, their job is to make sure that no mistakes happen. And, well, for my taste, I always kind of like mistakes, because that's kind of where you get a chance to see the humanity. You get to see the touch of the paw, the hand. This is another beautiful coloristic piece, and we've got that kind of the chartreuse fading into a kind of a coppery metallic thing. Also, these textures. So we've got this kind of a matte, kind of grayed out blue, but you can see he's left this, it's like an embossed texture there. Oh, and that is so nice, the way that transitions down. I'm thinking about, it's like a little Bach fugue, the way these colors move from one spectrum to the other, one rhythm to the other. The stripes are nice. And yeah, the black is good. '92 A1. This is from 1992, 48 by 48 inches. Well, okay, so this is 1992. You could probably go to Bushwick tomorrow and bump into 10 or a dozen 20-something, 30-something painters that are using this kind of burst form composition. And, well, they're not doing such a great job as Tom is doing here. Also, I was looking at this when I came in earlier and realizing that this is all perfectly balanced. So your notes of color coming down from the corner here to the center are repeated in each one of these quadrants. And we'll just kind of drift over this so you can get a sense of the variations of the textures and surfaces and glosses and finishes on these. Well, hoping Tom gets some response out of this. So this has been a little walking tour of paintings by Tom Bronk here at Andrew Edlin Gallery on the Bowery. Well, we have pedaled ourselves out to Bushwick, to 56 Bogart, and we've caught up with Sharon Butler.
Hey, Lauren Monk.
Yeah,
Kalm.
that's better. Okay. And we're going to look at the show here at Theodore Art by Sharon Butler. Do we have a title for the show?
Yes, the show is Sharon Butler, New Paintings.
Sharon Butler, New Paintings.
Cleverly enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you come up with a title like that?
Yeah, they're all based on drawings that I've been posting on Instagram each morning for the past couple of years.
Okay, we'll take a little swing around the installation. Let's start here. This is one of the bigger pieces in the show. I don't have the titles, Sharon.
Well,
do you have them all memorized?
Sometimes the titles, you see here there's a date. It's May 1st, 2018. That's the date, that's the title. And it's also the date that the original image was posted on Instagram.
So in a lot of ways, well, I shouldn't say in a lot of ways. In one way, not only are you working with paintings, but you're also referencing, what could I say, the problem or one of the challenges of our times, which is social media?
Well, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I guess that's true. I mean, it's sort of like I think of it more like an existential practice like Encore or something, where you're just recording something every day.
Tell us about the technique here. Is this oil?
This is oil on canvas.
And you've got kind of a rumply surface here. That's
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
Is that new?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was washing the canvases trying to get the sizing out, and after I finished washing them, they had the wrinkles in them. But the thing about the Instagram drawings that's really interesting is that the Instagram drawings have, the surface is fabricated. It's an illusion that there's some sort of surface. Whereas in fabric, there's nothing more natural than having wrinkles. It's a real surface. So.
Well, I'm just interested in, you were trying to wash out the size. Normally, if you're painting in oil, you put size in your canvas or on your canvas, and then you put just over the top of the size. So.
Yeah. Well, for many years, I
let's
just
keep
worked,
moving down the
I
line
worked
here.
And showed unstretched. So the idea of washing it and making it, and when they were all on the wall, they looked like old bed sheets, so it sort of appealed to me. But then ultimately, I ended up stretching them. Now, the ones without the dates are based on the visual language of the drawings, but they aren't based on a particular drawing.
So you were saying that these are based on drawings. Would that, as far as when you relate them into or turn them into paintings, does that mean that you're basically dealing more with linear composition things? Because there's also some very subtle painterly things with these fields and the kind of the circles of light yellow floating through there. But I guess the basic strong element is this kind of tripod scaffolding shape.
This one was from last year, and I made a series of paintings when I was spending a lot of time at campgrounds. I was very interested in
What were you doing in campgrounds?
camping.
Oh,
And I was very interested. I would be the lone old lady camping with amongst the families with all of the stuff.
did you have a lot of cats with you too?
I did have the cats, but the interesting thing was that everything was portable, and they were living this itinerant life, whereas I just had a small tent and my little Pullman stove, and they had everything. So I was fascinated by this notion of things that fold.
I like this piece, and Also, I noticed that some of these are on canvas board, and in a certain way, that's kind of an homage to Thomas Nuszkowski. I think he had his
Actually,
standard
no.
size. Really, he had his
Actually, no.
16 by 20 or something like that he
Well,
used
I
for
know that
years.
he did work on canvas board a lot, but
Yes.
actually, my homage with the canvas board is to my dad, who worked on. He was an amateur painter, and he worked on canvas boards. So we always had the canvas boards around the house, and it's a really comfortable medium for me, and I like the way it takes both pencil and paint really well. So
And
there's that.
am I mistaken, or this is also almost like warping out a little bit? We got the Ron Gorchov kind of thing coming in there.
This is the only one that has that. They've got French pleats on the back.
July 9th, August 17th, 2017.
All right, I'm going to tell you what this is, why this is like this, because everybody asks. I made a mistake. I put the wrong date on it, and I thought it was more important to have the right date than to have it look good. So sure, I could have painted it out. It's the casualist in me, though.
Yes, why don't you talk about that? Didn't you formulate the idea of casualism or
Yeah, well, the idea that
impromptuism or something like that?
things don't have to be perfect, but there's meaning in imperfection. It's kind of a wabi-sabi aesthetic.
Well, also, I think part of the thing about these relating to drawings is that you want to keep them very fresh, very... Would you say it's a one-shot kind of a thing, or do you go back in and work on them, or do you try to hit it in one or two goes?
I go into them a couple of times, and there's also underpainting, but basically the top coat is a one shot.
We should also talk a little bit about the blog.
Yes.
Two coats of paint.
2 coats of paint.
How long has that been going now?
That's been going. This is our 12th year.
12th year.
Yep.
Geez, that's almost as long as I've been doing the Kalm reports.
I know. And I have a question for you. What
What's
happened
that?
to the Brooklyn Dispatches, and why is it not in the Brooklyn Rail anymore? And why are there no reviews of Brooklyn shows in the Brooklyn Rail anymore? Why is that?
Because I'm not writing for the Brooklyn Rail anymore. No, I actually saw Fong last week. He came by for a studio visit, and we were talking a little bit, but I just think that the people that are writing for the Brooklyn Rail have got bigger fishes to fry than the Brooklyn
There's so
scene.
much going on in Brooklyn.
Yes, there
They
is.
should retitle it to be the Art Rail,
Yes,
not the Brooklyn Rail.
you're not going to get an argument from me on that point.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, it's not
Brooklyn
fair
is.
to all the galleries in Brooklyn who are making it go of it bigger and better than ever the gallery scene in Brooklyn, and yet the Brooklyn Rail isn't covered. So that's
Yeah,
my rant for today.
I'm not going to argue that point. We're going to keep moving here. So,
Yes.
12 years with 2 coats of paint.
12 years. 2 coats of paint.
we
What
were
am I
ta-
going to do with it? Where do I go from here?
I don't know. It's just
Do I
going to
do
get
it
bigger and
until I
better.
die? I don't know. Or do I move on? to
Maybe
the
it's
next
time to go to 3 coats of paint or 4 coats of
one?
paint
I
and
mean, it might be time
12
to-
coats of paint. And
The time might be coming to retire 2 coats of paint to work on other projects.
well, you could always put it to sleep for a couple of years and then come back
I could
and do
have
something
hiatus.
out.
I could have a.
Yeah.
I could have a managing editor. I could have a guest publisher.
Now, does this piece have a title?
This one has a title, and it's pink, untitled pink. Paul D'Agostino thinks it looks like a cat.
I can see that.
I can
Yeah, I
see
can
that.
see that.
Sort of geometric cat.
This is another piece. I think this might be my favorite piece in the show.
That's because you are drawn to color.
That's exactly right. I love color.
And this was a series of drawings I did that were all.
So let me.
They all had really colorful.
This is about 48 by 54 inches, something like that.
So close.
How close
I
am
think
I?
it's 48 by 52.
48 by 52. Well, I like this not only because of the colors, but also somehow this makes me think of Matisse, and whenever I think of Matisse, I get happy. And then you've got your.
That's the thing about color. Is that I'm such a sort of a contrary person, and so whenever I see color, when I put color in things, I feel like I'm pandering.
Really?
Yes, I feel.
I
like
guess
I'm
you are.
trying to make people happy, and look,
May 11th.
it works.
Well, you'd prefer to make people anxious and annoyed and sad and make them feel depressed? Is that,
Well, you know,
is that a higher calling?
I'm no Preston Sturgis, I admit.
So how long would you work on something like this? This is a little different than the
Yes, this
The
one is actually in video.
Instagram drawings.
It looks like it's raw canvas, but it's actually lots of layers of paint on there in the color of canvas. So these larger ones take a couple weeks. Even though they look very fresh, they're actually quite a bit of paint on there.
Well, I think that's part of your idea of the casualness or whatever, that
This one's
it's got to be fresh.
This one's called Two White Squares.
Well, I've noticed in a couple of these pieces that you do have kind of your central motifs, your central figures, and then you've also got something else kind of floating around, or almost like another composition in the background that you're sort of floating them in. Do you kind of do that intentionally, or it just happens, or
Well,
maybe you're
you know-
working on something, you decide you want to put something
Yes.
else on top?
Yes, it's like I'm working on something and I think, well, that's not what I want, and then I just make the other thing right on top of it.
More canvas boards. So probably about at least half the show is on the canvas boards, right?
Yes, yep.
And what is this?
Canvas boards
Is
are
this-
the newest work.
Is this 18 by 24? Is that what it
18 by
says?
24.
Okay. Let's keep moving. I also like this piece. So this is December 23rd, 2016. Okay, so 2 days before Christmas. Well, again, we were talking about color, but this has got very muted colors, although I like that kind of that fleshy pink. And are you a fan of Morandi? Because you got
no,
the
actually-
gray tones in there. and-
Actually, the thing about Morandi that I
Yes.
find really interesting, I always wondered, you know, it's World War II. It's crazy outside, and he's making these paintings that don't reflect his surroundings in any way. I found refuge in painting, and I can understand why Morandi turned to painting during
Well, but
a
I-
difficult time.
I was specifically talking about your use of grays, and I
Oh,
would
yeah.
say that a lot of these pieces, you are kind of
Yeah.
playing with the spectrum of grays, you know, not only the cool grays and warm grays, but grays that are, you know,
It's true.
tinting into a violet or tinting into a
I'm a
golden
huge
color.
fan of the tertiary mixture.
Tertiaries is one of my favorite words.
This one was from the series made during my campground period.
Okay, and it also says here in the press release that, let's see, you were at Yaddo, is that?
Yes. Yep.
Was that the campground, or was that's a,
No. The campground was actually a campground. It was like a national park campground, and I had to be up in this town, and I didn't have any place to stay, so I
is this upstate New York?
no up in Madison, Connecticut. So I would stay at the
Connecticut.
Madison campground. I had a little Walmart tent, and my Coleman stove. I think someone should start an artist residency on a campground, and everybody would bring their own tent. It'd be great. You'd have campfires at night. Everyone would go out during the day. Campfires at night. It'd be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, we could have little
I keep throwing this idea out there. hoping somebody
torch-lit
will pick me
parades
up
out
on
there in the
it.
campgrounds.
Nobody's done it yet. Although somebody told me that there is an organization that does things similar.
So, yeah,
Wisconsin or something.
I'm also noticing that, I said most of these are on canvas boards, but your pieces on stretched canvas are also seem to be more highly color keyed.
Yes.
These are not quite into the same
the ones that
realm
are on
of grays.
stretched canvas are the earlier ones. They're the ones that are based on the campground. This is called, or not based on the campground, but took place during the campground period. This one's called a rack.
So, but you weren't painting, were you painting in the campgrounds, or were you just making drawings that you then took back to the studio and
Drawings. Took them
made the
back to
paintings
studio.
from the,
Yeah.
The drawings, okay. And this is what, about 22 by 20, something
Yeah.
like that?
Yes, uncanny how you can get those sizes.
I'm thinking of,
As if you've been doing it for a while.
yeah, I'm thinking of having a little booth at the carnivals, you know, and bring in your paintings and I'll guess the size.
Height and weight, right? Here's
And-
some other big tertiary action happening here.
Yes, but again, here you've kind of, you're dealing with these kind of very subtle gradations of things in your background, but again, you've got your basic kind of linear configuration in here. And I think it's also important, or it's interesting, that you're playing with the whole idea of line and color.
Yeah, line, color.
Because theoretically, from classic painting, there was always this dialectic or this dichotomy between line and color, and supposedly the twain could never meet. And so you had the people that were into the design, and then the people who were into the colors. I think it was the, what was it, the Florence school versus the Venetian school. So the Venetians,
What
the
is it, like
Venetians had the cool,
1400s?
something like that. Okay, this is the last piece in the show.
Yes. Yep. October 13th, 2016. Shortly before the presidential election.
Okay. Well, thanks for a
Hey.
little walking, talking
It's great to see
tour.
you. Great
Nice to see you.
It's always good to talk with James Kalm.
Yes. If you're looking to be depressed with, this is the place to come. So this is an exhibition of paintings by Sharon Butler.
2 coats of paint.
2 coats of paint. Tell us what the address is.
twocoatsofpaint.com.
twocoatsofpaint.com, and the title of the show is New Paintings? Here at Theodore Art, 56 Bogart Street. You can like this, subscribe and share, recommend it to your friends. You can leave your ideas, thoughts, criticisms. I know people are going to say I didn't let Sharon talk enough. Okay. And I was moving the camera too fast.
Thanks for coming to Bushwick. And thanks to everyone else who came out here.
For the Bushwick Open Studios last week. Okay, I didn't get a chance to spend I only spent about 2 hours out here, but normally I'm out here for 2 days. You can leave your thoughts, ideas, criticisms, reviews, and suggestions below. And as always, we like to say at the end of these, thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
Scottish octopus? Nice, thank you. Thank you.